Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So I work at a marina on a native reserve, a place that's usually quite easygoing. We have a full-service marina with pumps for boats and cars, and our job involves going out and pumping gas for the customers. It's nestled in a plaza that also houses a restaurant, a tobacco shop, and cannabis shop, all on First Nations land and owned by the reserve. The management takes great care of us, making it the best job I could ask for. But one particular Saturday of the Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, my co-worker and I found ourselves in a rather unpleasant situation. You see, on busy weekends like these, we have a police officer stationed at the plaza to prevent people from doing stupid things. The pandemic had restricted access to the reserve, allowing only residents and property owners to enter. This restriction led to constant attempts by tourists to sneak onto the reserve or park in a private marina lot. Our friendly neighborhood cop, NC, was there to keep the idiots at bay. Now let me tell you, this cop was one of the good ones, and I say that as someone who wasn't particularly fond of the police myself. As the day was filled with boats going out and people heading to their cottages for one last hurrah before winter, the marina was bustling. My co-worker and I were constantly shuttling between the lakeside and roadside pumps, attending to a long line of customers eager to get their boats and cars fueled up. And then came the entitled Karen. But before we delve into that, I should provide some context. According to my boss, Karen was a regular visitor to the cannabis store, and she had a habit of complaining about product quality and other issues. So when she pulled up to the gas station, instead of informing me that she needed gas, she simply got out of her car and walked away. I called after her trying to clarify her intentions. "Excuse me, sorry, are you getting gas?" I asked politely. "No," she snapped, continuing to walk away, oblivious to the growing line of cars behind her. I tried again. "I'm sorry, but if that's the case, you're going to have to move your car. We have other people waiting for gas here." But Karen continued to march toward the other side of the plaza, ignoring my request. At this point, a nice cop noticed the commotion and decided to intervene. He approached Karen and engaged her in conversation, which I couldn't hear clearly but gathered it involved something like this. Cop tells her, "Ma'am, are you aware that you're banned from these premises for 30 days? That ban started 9 days ago, so you still have like 3 weeks left." "How am I supposed to know? I know my rights." "Ma'am, this area from that tree to that tree is also native land and, thus, part of the plaza property." He gestured to 2 trees on either side of the asphalt lot. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "What? So now an Indian can arrest a white woman? Am I right, man?" She gestured toward me, and although I was taken aback, I didn't respond. "You don't understand how they treated me back there," the nice cop tells her. "For the last time, you've been banned from the entirety of the plaza. You can come back in 3 weeks, but for now, you must leave the premises immediately." "But you're not even a real cop. You don't have any authority over me. Get off your power trip, Indian." "I assure you, ma'am, that I'm a part of the reserve's named police department, and if need be, I have full authority to arrest you just like any other police officer would." "Oh yeah, sure, buddy. I am suing this plaza, and I'm getting you all fired." She pointed at me now, and up to that point I had retreated inside the marina, helping another customer pay for their boat's gas and snacks. Cop tells her, "That's fine, ma'am, but if you don't leave, I will have to arrest you. If you come back within the next 3 weeks, you will be arrested as well." Realizing that the cop wasn't backing down and had called her a bluff, Karen huffed, sat back in her car and mumbled something derogatory like, "Frickin' Redskins," before driving off. That concluded that incident for that day. The next day, as I sat here writing this, the marina is unusually slow. I've had enough time to watch Netflix throughout my shift. Then I spot my coworker walking over from the parking lot, getting ready to start his shift. But something catches my eye behind him. Karen is being pushed up against a car, screaming her lungs out as a nice cop proceeds to cuff her. The scene is just barely out of earshot, but I can still hear Karen shouting, "What? So I'm getting arrested by an Indian cop? What a load of nonsense. I'm getting you all fired. I'll sue everyone." The nice cop guides her to the other side of the parking lot, where my view is obstructed by the other cars. However, I can still hear Karen's relentless stream of obscenities. The nice cop later fills me in on the details. Karen had returned, intent on videotaping the cannabis store and highlighting supposed health hazards, poor product quality, and health and safety issues. Now, let me tell you, the process to open a cannabis store is meticulous. They don't let you open if anything is short of perfect. This store hadn't even been opened for a year and all the equipment was brand new. So when the nice cop got wind of Karen's plan, he returned to the scene and arrested her. As he restrained her, she started dialing 911. Yes, you read that right. She called the cops on the cops. Her justification? He's an Indian cop, not a real cop. The nice cop had to engage in a rather amusing conversation with the other police department to clarify the situation, all while Karen continued screaming in the background. In the end, they released her but extended her ban from the premises indefinitely. My coworker and I couldn't help but burst into laughter, knowing that this will be the highlight of our Thanksgiving dinner stories. To preface, the scenario involves my roommate, let's call her Callie, her ex, let's call him Tweaky McGee, myself, Tweaky's fling Nikki, and my roommate's dog, an adorable blue-nose pitty, let's go with Derby. Keep in mind, I myself am 25, Callie is 25 as well, but Tweaky McGee is 19. This will be relevant later. Now this story begins with my roommate. She had just gotten out of an exhausting but not necessarily abusive relationship, and she was on a lookout for something casual while she regained her independence and reclaimed her life. Unfortunately, Tweaky McGee came around and made himself at home in our house. At first, it wasn't too bad. We're all moderate stoners and he knew the right people, so it seemed like a fair give and take, considering we didn't pay for much smoke throughout the time he was essentially squatting, but he put forth nothing when it came to groceries and bills. Now, my roommate was far enough removed from her previous relationship at this point to be fiercely protective of her independence, but given the age difference, she chalked up some glaringly obvious red flags when they began to present. Tweaky got his pet name for a number of reasons, but the main one was this. He had an Adderall prescription, 20 mg. As he was prescribed the meds, he chomped on quite a few, but it quickly spiraled into a 10-pill per day habit. First, he was just chomping, but began to snort them off our living room table after about 2 weeks. As his habit progressed, Callie also partook, as she has a very demanding job and the extra energy helped her through her 70-hour weeks. I believe that this is another reason why she put up with it as long as she did. As the relationship progressed, the oh-so-common side effects of stimulant abuse began to creep onto both of them. Irritability, poor short-term memory, inability to accurately communicate emotions and thoughts. Since I did my best to stay out of their relationship, as it's not my place to interfere in something I know her to be smart and mature enough to handle, I never really got involved, but she and I had many deep conversations while he was out on runs. I felt like our talks were making headway until one day Tweaky McGee went crazy and started impetuously bringing up the idea of getting a dog. Keep in mind, we live in a college town, and while we're both out of school, we work full-time in a very small 2-bedroom house. She was apprehensive at first since she was already going through the motions of cutting him off, but she had also wanted a dog for years at this point. After 2 weeks of Callie and Tweaky visiting various shelters, they decided on Derby. Derby was an absolutely adorable 6-month-old blue-nosed pit bull, was one of the most prominent personalities I have ever seen in a dog. My family used to train dogs professionally. Incredibly playful, super smart, and a perfect demeanor for a small house with a bigger backyard. Now, only being your friendly neighborhood stoner and not partaking in the speedy delights, I saw it for what it was. But she was blinded by the adorable pup. Twiki knew that Callie was setting the stage to kick his butt to the curb, and thought that a dog was a perfect ball and chain for the situation. But his age and addiction caught up with him. All the paperwork and payments were made in Callie's name, including the registration paperwork, initial vet visits, professional bit sitters, toys, and so on. Since she works incredibly long hours and Twiki essentially being a bum, he got the thought in his head that the dog was his, and when push came to shove, he could keep him. Well, the day of reckoning came after about 3 weeks of escalating early morning arguments and general irritation, and while I was at work, the breakup finally happened. Cops ended up being called, but no blows were thrown. Twiki packed all his crap up and drove it back to his mother's, then came back, told Callie he was leaving, and took Derby with him. This time, the cops that showed up had no idea what had been transpiring, and they let him walk off with the dog. Less than 24 hours later, Callie had made so many calls to the police department / lawyer / pet advocacy groups that she had her course of action laid out. After the filing was complete, she was beyond paranoid because of the threat to retaliation. I'm a pretty big dude, 6'4", 235 pounds. So I knew I could stand my ground, but she's a tiny little thing, and I have a full-time job. In my state, any disputes regarding animals are to be settled in civil courts, and the pets are treated as property. Now, I don't know about y'all, but pets are family and do not deserve to be treated on the same basis property. The next day, she had filed a civil suit in an attempt to get Derby back. At her first court date, she presented all the evidence of her ownership of Derby, as well as the resources she has available to her in order to provide the best level of care for the pup. Twiki countered with a slew of baseless accusations, essentially claiming that she had been abusive to Derby. That's false, and that she doesn't have the time nor resources to properly take care of him. Also false. Unfortunately, the civil court system tends to draw these things out. The court eventually ruled in her favor and ordered Twiki to return Derby, but when the cops turned up, apparently Derby had run away. Before this, she was only trying to get Derby back, and not really seeking any financial compensation or punishment. By this time, approximately 2 months after the breakup, which is nonsense on its own, he had already been in and out of a relationship with another woman, Nikki. Nikki had been around and heard about the court crap, but didn't know the other party. Once she found out it was Callie who Twiki had screwed over, she started messaging Callie telling her a bunch of information about Derby, as they were friends back in the day. It turns out that in the time since the breakup, Twiki had been staying with his mother, an honest-to-goodness hoarder with about 10 square feet of usable space in her apartment. Twiki was also unable to take Derby out on walks or on pup play dates due to the fact that there was still a return order for Derby. One day he took Derby to his dealer's house, who also has 2 pitties of his own. However, Derby is in his teenage stage and began getting fresh with one of the other pets and ended up getting pretty brutally attacked. Since the return order was still in effect and the information about him and the dog was given to every vet within 50 miles, he couldn't take him to get treatment. Twiki also made a deal with this dealer to essentially pimp out Nikki, which was one of the many reasons she was on our side. Upon hearing this, Callie, now off the uppers and much more clear-headed, absolutely lost it. She went to her lawyer to see if there was anything she could do to expedite the return of Derby. Turns out she had a few options. Come to today, Twiki has officially been charged with felony theft and animal abuse / neglect charges, and they are wrapping up the legal process with pleas and other legal whatnot. He faces up to 8 years in prison, and if he doesn't return Derby within 1 week from today, he will receive the maximum sentence. There is also a separate case in the works from Nikki regarding the whole shady pimping crap he tried to pull, as well as unsurprisingly charges for possession / manufacturing with intent to distribute meth and cocaine. Part of me feels bad for him because he absolutely nuked the rest of his life at such a young age. But Callie and I both know that he wasn't going to get any better regardless. He had his chance, and he squandered it. About 4 years ago, I was in love with a guy named John. We had been dating for 4 years and it was clear to both of us that we were meant to be together. He proposed to me and it was a moment filled with love and joy. Well, until I saw the ring he had chosen. The ring he used to propose was 2 sizes too big. I mean, I appreciated the gesture, but I couldn't wear a ring that would slip off my ring at any given moment. So we went back to the jewelry store where he had bought it, just 2 weeks before proposing, mind you, and thankfully, he had kept a receipt. The plan was to exchange it for the right size while keeping the same beautiful design. Seemed like a simple enough plan. We continued with our wedding plans, which we had been saving for and meticulously planning for 3 years. However, just 10 months after John's proposal, he tragically passed away in a car accident. It was a devastating blow to both our families and I was left heartbroken. The savings we had accumulated for our wedding were instead used to pay for John's funeral. The day after the funeral, John's brother approached me and asked for the ring. Now, I was still grieving and emotionally fragile, but I couldn't understand why he'd want the ring. He explained that it had been passed down through their family for 5 generations, and he believed it belonged to him. I was taken aback because I had a receipt and proof that the ring was bought for me less than a year ago. I told him as much and we argued for a bit before he stormed out. But the drama didn't end there. Soon, I started receiving calls from John's family, accusing me of being a liar and demanding that I return the ring. Then I received a letter from their lawyer, in which they also demanded that I reimburse them for the costs of John's funeral. This whole situation was escalating quickly, so I decided to get myself a lawyer. In court, I presented all the evidence I had, the receipt, the exchange, and the fact that I had paid for John's funeral. After a lengthy legal battle, I emerged victorious. I thought the madness was finally over. But then just recently, John's sister reached out to me. She and her boyfriend were engaged and they hadn't gotten a ring yet. She wanted John's ring, and I told her that I couldn't give it to her. And that's when everything took a turn for the worse. She went absolutely crazy, sending me a barrage of messages demanding the ring. I tried blocking her, but she somehow kept finding a way around it. It was getting so bad that I couldn't even have a peaceful brunch with a friend without being interrupted by her messages. My friend had known about the whole situation from the beginning, but when she saw the messages, she told me that I was in the wrong and that I should have given the ring to John's sister. She shared this with our other friends and they all seemed to agree. And now I am left questioning myself, wondering if I'm the jerk in the situation. So I ask all of you, am I the jerk? Some additional information might help clarify things. This ring is part of a company that designs jewelry based on movies and mass produces each style in different sizes. This company started after the year 2000. When we went to the store to get the right size, John asked for ring 1 to be swapped with the right size and the same style, ring 2. If he had modified ring 1 with any family diamonds, he would have asked for ring 1 to be resized. After the swap, and when telling his parents about the engagement, I showed them the ring, and John told them about where he bought it and the size swap. His parents never mentioned anything about an heirloom ring or family diamonds. It was only after the funeral that they started claiming their great-great-great-grandparents bought this ring and that it's an heirloom. John's parents messaged me about not being able to afford the funeral, and at the time I assumed it was because his sister was about to start college and that they put the wedding fund to good use since the wedding wasn't going to happen anymore. I ended up paying for everything for the funeral and the parents didn't contribute at all. It was during the court proceedings that I found out John had life insurance and that money went to his parents, which was twice the cost of his funeral. When I received a letter from their lawyer, I thought it might be fake. But I called my friend who's a lawyer and he told me to meet him with a letter and all my documents related to the ring and the funeral. He said the letter was real and he would help me. I thought that after their lawyer saw my proof, it would be the end of the madness. But next thing I know, we were in court. Most of the time I was confused, but I just spoke the truth and showed all my proof. Why John's sister wants the ring? Well, in her first message asking for the ring, she said that John would want her to have it. She believed that it would make her feel like John is a part of her next step in life and that it would let his spirit know that he's not forgotten. After her recent messages, I've called my lawyer friend again, sent him screenshots of her messages, and we have a meeting scheduled for this week. I'm also rethinking my friendships with the friends who think I'm in the wrong and should give the ring to John's sister. I'll keep you all updated on how things unfold. Thank you very much for your support. And now with some comments on the post. Someone saying, talk to a lawyer. You are being harassed by the greedy, lying, litigious family of your deceased partner. None of them deserve a damn thing from you, much less your engagement ring your fiancé bought you. His sister can get her ring out of a gumball machine for all you care. It's not your problem or responsibility to provide her with jewelry, not the jerk. And you need better friends. If they are siding with the sister, your ring was important to you. It's yours. Why would you ever lose it? Another commenter adds, not the jerk. This ring was purchased for you by your fiancé, with the intent that you be the one to wear it. Although I'm sympathetic that John's family is still grieving, this was intended by your fiancé to be yours, not his family's heirloom. Sorry for your loss. I hope your friends will come around to understand why you hold on to this ring. The third commenter goes with, not the jerk. And what kind of friends are these? I think you need to reassess. They either don't know that the ring was purchased for you as an engagement ring, a romantic gift that has nothing to do with his family, or they aren't people who care much about you.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.